Hello everybody and welcome to this 8th chapter in your Java EE7 tutorial series. In this tutorial we'll be talking about facelets and how it reduces the time and effort needed to be spent on development and deployment of a website's presentational layer. Facelets are a declarative language that creates the view for JSF. Now let's take a look at a few features of facelets. The first thing that you might notice is that it's an XHTML, which is a merge of XML and HTML merged into one, which makes it easier for people that are coming from XML or HTML to be working with facelets. There's also support for facelets tag libraries, which means that there's a lot of stuff that developers have created before you, and you can use all those wonderful stuff in facelets. And there's also support for expression language, which means that we'll be taking basically parameters from your Java classes and then putting them in your presentational layer. We'll be getting more in depth in expression language in the next chapter, but for now just understand that you're taking stuff from your Java classes and putting it straight into the stuff that you can see in your website. Now there are a few advantages for facelets. One is it's really easy to reuse code in facelets. Facelets is pretty useful whenever you want to create multiple websites, and they have a very similar template. We'll be going over how to use that code reusability later on in this tutorial, but just understand that facelets have extremely usable code. And it also has faster compilation time than other competitors out there. And honestly, that's a great win for everybody. So a few examples that we'll be covering is developing the managed beans, creating pages using component tags, and defining page navigation. Now, developing managed beans is what you will be seeing in the example later on. And creating pages using component tags, which means that, by the way, component tags are just, it's basically like code that takes in user input, does stuff on it, and then does something to your pages. And defining page navigation means that, let's say you log in and then you wanna log out, so you leave the computer, and then somebody shouldn't be able to go back whenever you log out. So that's basically what defining page navigation is. And there's a lot more, like mapping the facelets servlet instance and adding managed bean declarations. Now let's take a look at the guest number JSF example. To start our guest number JSF example, let's right click and click open project. And inside here, let's navigate all the way back up to our C drive. Double click on that. And let's go to our Glassfish server, where our Glassfish server is kept. Go into Docs, Java EE tutorial, examples. Click Web. And then inside here, you'll see JSF. And now you'll see your JSF, your guest number JSF. Open that up. And now this example, what it does is it presents you with a page that asks you to guess a number between 0 and 10. It validates your input against a random number and responds with another page that informs you whether you guessed the number correctly or incorrectly. So a few stuff that I want to take notice of. Going into our source packages and our only managed bean over here, you can see that it has the annotation at named and at session scoped. So this user number bean is aptly created as a managed bean through this at named annotation. This makes it accessible through expression language, which again we'll be talking about in the next chapter. Just know that all the stuff here, like the setters and getters, this makes all the data inside this Java bean right here accessible to your XHTML or your presentation layer. And then there's the add session scoped. Like it enables you to take multiple guesses on the same session. Now there's nothing much over here, just a few setters and getters. Like for example, getting response and setting like a number. But other than that, it's nothing much. Now let's take a look at our presentation layer. The first thing that you'll be greeted in this example will be our greeting.xhtml. which again looks intimidating since it's a new kind of concept, XHTML, but it's very similar to HTML and XML. There's one thing that I want to shift your focus to is these namespaces. So these are Facelets HTML tags, which begin with H, which means that anything with the H colon is treated as an HTML tag. So this is treated as an HTML tag, this is treated as an HTML tag, this is treated as an HTML tag, and so on. There's also the Facelets core tag, like namespace, which treats everything with the F colon as a Facelets tag, like this validate long range. Now that we're here in this validate long range, let's take a look at what it's doing. This validate long range is first taking the input from the user, right, user number, and it's checking if it's greater than 0 or it's less than 10. If it's less than 0 or greater than 10, then it will output an error. But if everything's all right, then what you should be responding with is this response.xhtml, which is a simple page that gives you a graphic image of Duke waving his hand and saying that either you got it right or you got it wrong. So the last thing that we want to take a look at is our configuration file, or x.xml. In here, you will see that first our param value is development, which means that we're in the development phase, since we're not yet ready to project this out to our world. And there's also the welcome file list, which has one welcome file, which is our greeting.xhtml. What this does is whenever you're like setting up the URL and you're putting it in your like bar over there, you get introduced to this XHTML like as your introduction, and then you go on to the next ones. But because this is your welcome file, this will be the first thing that you'll see. So to fire it up, what we got to do is first let's make sure that our Glassfish server is started. In my case, it's already started. And let's click double click or right click and click build. Now that our build is successful, let's now run our program. So going to a new tab, let's take our URL, which is http localhost 8080 guest number JSF. And now hit that up and you will see Duke waving to you, and he'll say, "Hi, my name is Duke. I'm thinking of a number between 0 and 10. Can you guess it?" And you can go ahead and try to guess it. Let's start with 1. And 1 is not it. Let's try 2. 2 doesn't seem to be it. Let's try 3. Alright, let's try going backwards then. Let's say 10. Nope. 9. How about 8? 7. Yeah, Duke is kind of... he's really... oh my god. Alright, 5. It's going to be 4. And yay, you got it right. As you can see, it took me multiple tries, which means that the session, this whole entire thing, this application is session scoped, which means that, like, for example, if I put in 5, right, it's incorrect, so I have to go back, which means that this has to retain the information, which means that it has to be in the session scoped. And if you want to cheat, you can go into your NetBeans and actually go into your Glassfish server, and you can actually see Duke's number over here as 4. And that's all there is to it, to this example. Now that we're done with that example, let's take a look at a few more things that Facelets have to offer. Templating allows you to reuse code instead of creating multiple similar looking web pages. Like for example, if you have a similar top left or main section, you can then use that template in a next page. Then there's composite components, which is customized user components. Components are a piece of reusable code that behaves in a certain way. Like for example, taking user input and then adding it to a queue. This can be customized to the fullest extent of which your imagination desires with composite components. Web resources are basically anything that is used for proper web app rendering, like images or libraries. Web resources allow you to keep files on images or folders that may get lost in previous versions of Java EE. Then there's resource library contracts, which allow a modular feel for different web pages. You remember how we were talking about using Facelets templates to allow you to reuse code? In this case, you can then use that reuse code in a different modular feel for different kinds of websites. Now let's use these contracts and templates that we've learned inside our Hello One RCL example. Now that you learned all that, let's take a look at a resource library contract of the Hello One version that we've seen before in previous tutorials. So let's go ahead and clean this so there's no background files and close it. Right click and open project and click Hello One RLC, which just stands for Resource Library Contract. Now these library contracts actually change the look and feel of these two pages. If we go into web pages and double click on our faces config.xml, you can see there's a mapping for the reply URL, and there's a contract for the reply of this URL, and there's another mapping that's consisted of the hello contract with all other URLs. This just means that if you're in any URL in this application, you'll have the contract hello, but if you're inside a reply URL, you'll have the reply contract. Now that you get that, let's take a look at our configuration file or web.xml. Inside here, I just want to point out that our welcome file is again greeting.xml, which is over here. And in our greeting.xml, there's one new thing that's in here that's different from the previous Hello One example. It's this template equals template.xhtml, which gets the template of whatever like URL you're in, which means that if you're in the hello URL, you'll get this template right here. So this template looks different from the template inside the reply URL, which has a different kind of color and a different kind of look. So now that you get that, you can go ahead and first of all, you want to start your Glassfish server. So go ahead and start that. Now that that's started, let's go ahead and right click our Hello One RLC. So you want to right click, build. And once you're done building, let's go ahead and get our URL, http localhost 8080 hello one RLC. So let's open up Google Chrome and put in this link. And you'll see that you have a completely different look from what your response is going to be. So go ahead and put your name, click submit, and your template or your contract is what's making your entire page look completely different from this page. Now that we're done with that, let's take you through the wonders of HTML5. Now, web browsers nowadays support HTML5, but before, HTML5 was a pretty new concept. With HTML5, there's no need to create complex, self-defined elements and attributes. They're all there for you to use, and support from JSF to HTML5 is from pass-through attributes and pass-through elements. It gives the page author almost complete control over the rendered result. Now the first thing we'll take a look at is pass-through elements. It allows you to use HTML5 tags and attributes, but treat them as JSF components. This means that it's possible to code in HTML, but convert it into a JSF page. Then there's pass-through attributes. It allows you to pass HTML5 or other attributes straight to the rendered output. In this case, it's our clients. This is because many versions of JSF components may not support HTML5, and is so the reason why pass-through attributes were created. Again, like I said, most web browsers support HTML5 now, but before it was a new concept and most browsers didn't support it. So this pass-through attributes made it HTML5 extremely appealing to web developers. Pass-through attributes make it possible to render HTML5 attributes, which are not natively supported by the web browser. This also saves a lot of trouble on both the client's end and the developer's end. Now let's take a look at our reservation example that takes into account HTML5. So let's use what we learned about HTML5 and look at an example. So let's go ahead and clean this and close it. Let's right click and open a project, and let's go to our reservation project. Now this project is simply creating a reservation for buying tickets. What we can do is we can open this guy up, and the first thing we want to look at is our reservation.xml. Go ahead and double click on that, and the first thing you'll see are these namespaces. So you've seen this namespace H, which tells you that everything with the H namespace, which the H prefix, is considered as an HTML tag, while everything with F is considered a Facelets tag, but these two you haven't seen before. So P, it's just telling you that anything with the P prefix, it's a pass-through attribute. And with the JSF like namespace, it's telling you that it's part of the JSF like library. So if we scroll down over here, you'll see that like it's a very simple like HTML page. It first asks you for your name, your email again, and your performance date. One thing you want to take a look at of these like tags is that they all have this JSF :ID, and then they have either like a string, or like, for example, this email has this email has email again, and this one has date. What this does is these tags are now available for JSF to modify and use later on. That's what these JSF tags do. Now, next, let's take a look at the relocatable resource. Actually, if you go all the way back up, you'll see that you have this output style sheet, which looks good so far, and then you say, whoa, there's something called target equals head. What does that mean? That means that whenever you're putting stuff inside here and you say target equals head, this is pushed all the way up to this head tag. You can see that there's nothing here, but when you run the code, this will be treated as if it's in the head code, which is super useful if you like already typed out stuff and you really don't want to copy paste everything like into your head tag. So you can just use the target equals head. So now that we get that and you saw our pass-through elements, let's take a look at our pass-through attribute. Over here in our numbered tickets, you see that there's F pass-through attributes, which makes this, so this is a map, which is basically like it gets the number of tickets, and it basically sends it straight directly to your client instead of going through JSF, because JSF might screw this over. We don't want JSF to do that, so we just pass it through. And then there's something new that you'll learn later, but we'll just touch up over here. So there's Ajax, which basically it recalculates the total, and it only reloads one part of the page. This increases performance and makes your overall user experience greater than before. Then if we scroll down here, you'll see that prices has many pass-through attributes, which means that once again, these will be sent directly straight to your client instead of going through JSF, where JSF might screw it over. And now let's take a look at our managed bean. So if we go to our sources package and double click our reservation bean.java, you'll see that it's named, which makes it managed bean, and it's session scoped, which means that you can go back and forth and it will understand the data in between. Over here, there's not much, just a few getters and setters, except for this calculate total over here, which is our Ajax method, which once again, it takes the number of tickets and the price of the tickets, totals them up, and then gives you the total. And then there's another one which clears it out, so you don't have to worry about it when you're reloading it. And now that you get that, well, we could take a look at our web.xml. Here, there's nothing much. Just once again, I want to point out the welcome file is reservation.xml, which is this one right here, and our confirmation.xml, which is just a confirmation that says thank you for your reservation and your tickets are confirmed. So now that you get that, let's go ahead, make sure that our Glacier server is running. It looks like it is, and build it. Now that we have our build successfully made right over here, let's go ahead, open our Google Chrome tab and put in our URL, localhost 8080/reservation. And in here you can put in your name, let's say Viprov Programming, Viprov some email, Viprov, and type it in again. And let's put a performance date, let's say October 5th, 2020. And let's get 4 tickets and let's just pay $1. Let's try to make a reservation, and it actually tells you that you have to put more than $1, of course. Alright, and you can see Ajax in action right here. You see that when I put $80, this estimated total now gave us 320 by multiplying this and this together. This is the power of Ajax. You don't have to reload the entire page. You can just reload this section over here and it'll make your experience much greater. So let's make the reservation, and it says thank you for your reservation with Viprov Programming. Your 4 tickets are confirmed and your total amount is this. And don't worry, no actual email has been sent to Viprov at some email, and you can actually go back and you can see your data is still there. So these are examples of using HTML5 in your code. This is really cool if you let's say you want to use these little arrow brackets, like enter and choose date. So this is only available in HTML5, which makes it, it's incredible. And that wraps up everything that you need to know about Facelets for this tutorial. I hope you liked today's video, and I'll see you in the next video.